Global Partners for Development proudly presents What Do You Understand? A deep dive into the many facets of philanthropy and development. We will have conversations about what really works and what really doesn't. Do we know yet how to solve poverty? Are big ideas the answer, or do we need to look for small, grassroots solutions? Experts in their field will discuss an aspect of their work that they understand particularly well. We will delve into how their work addresses global inequity with an honest conversation about impact. Let's talk about big bets, innovation, social enterprises, large-scale humanitarian aid, and the fixation on ending things, or solving humanity's greatest problems, and the issues that arise while tackling it all. I am your host, Rita Pullen, and my co-host is the Executive Director of Global Partners for Development, Daniel Casanova. And our guest today is Mark Casanova, the Executive Director of Homeless Healthcare Los Angeles. Hi, Mark. And hey, there's a similar last name. Is there a relation here?
Yeah, there you go. Well, thank you for having me. And yes, there is, as you know. That's my beautiful son there. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Nepotism. Thank you for letting us interview you, Dad.
Okay. Well,
this is a surprise guest. He has no idea this was happening. The winter storm canceled our previous guest. So here we are.
Well, I'm happy to be here. So let's have this conversation.
What's one thing through your whole time working in philanthropy? What is the one thing you have learned and know particularly well?
Well, as it relates to philanthropy, I actually, I'm a clinician by trade. So initially I hit the work from a real practical care for people. My parents were really caring people, and they just passed that on to me. And my whole life, I've been just doing kind things for people every day. And but in terms of that, so I entered the field as an expert, becoming an expert ultimately about what people need to resolve the issues or concerns, problems they had as it relates to homelessness. And along the way, I became the director, which lo and behold involved a lot of development, a lot of fundraising. And so in my early years, actually, I was lucky enough to meet a pretty amazing development person who actually gave me the one lesson that I've carried the whole time, which is development is addition. It's getting one and keeping one. That's it. So you're collecting whatever it is that can further your mission, or so it's been a pretty simple thing of adding and adding and keeping, and lo and behold, 30 some odd years later, I have a collection of donors and friends who support us. But so the exciting part of what I do, I haven't talked about homeless healthcare. I can. It's an exciting thing for me. I come to work with a smile. I love this. And that's what I express to my donors, a real happy view of what it's like coming to work for a group like this, but also a beautiful view of what you do, that I can give you the cliches of how they make a difference, and how people's lives are changed. But I just think it's more so in development, the energy and the excitement about what you do, because it's almost more important for them to see that this is a group that not only cares, but is really jazzed to come to work. You want to be a part of something. I think everybody, no different than our clients. I did a talk on Monday about communal belonging. And, in the targeted group I work with, we enforce sanctions. And, it's a group of people who have been rejected, disenfranchised, and then told what to do, told how to do it, and punished. And whether it's the courts, the police, the criminal justice system, the shelter telling them, if they don't change, they have to get out, or just about anything that the folks experiencing homelessness and who may use drugs get. But for homeless healthcare, it's really having relationships are more important than forcing on these sanctions. And
Yeah.
so that leads to this communal belonging that is really important, because if you can work with people who haven't belonged, and they can get from us something that promotes health and wellness. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And I think fundraising is the same thing. It's getting people to come in a communal way to be part of something that's bigger than what's going on in their life.
So what drew you to working with the homeless populations? You said 30 something years ago. What was it in your background that drew you to work with that population in
Well, I was
particular?
sitting on a therapist's couch and looking at her, and I thought, I want this gig. Somebody walks in and they lay down and they pay you money. And I thought, gee, I want that job. So I started to do the work. I went to a shelter and I thought, how difficult is it to help somebody find a home? And lo and behold, it's really difficult.
Oh, man.
And people don't have just one issue, they have many, and a lot of barriers and access issues. And so I learned at an early going that this was where I wanted to work. And in LA, it's a big problem. So it was tackling a big problem that had a lot of hope in it to change the system, and to not just give out a Band-Aid, so to speak, the day-to-day work, but be part of a bigger solution. So yeah, that's what drew me into this arena of homelessness.
And also, so like I grew up in Europe, and I don't feel like I saw as much of this issue until I moved back to America. Is there something inherently in our systems here in America that contribute to the homeless situations that we have in a lot of our big cities?
It's just a big problem, the socioeconomic, you name it. It's a problem way beyond necessarily what we can do as service providers, or even people in society that want to help build affordable housing and all those things. It's, you know, it's kind of like that parable where with the babies coming down the river, and a kid from the village finally standing up, and because the village had created all these great things to save these babies, and he says, well, why don't we just go up the river and find out where they're coming from? And similarly with homelessness, it's kind of that problem. It's like, let's prevent what's going on, and we might actually put an end to it, because the problem is so deep and so costly that I'm not sure that we're going to do anything more than put a dent in it. And it's going to take a restructuring and a redo of how we look at it and what we do. And definitely in the target I do, it's primarily around addiction. It's about harm reduction and redoing the punishment schema of what we do. We punish people and enforce sanctions, and we don't decriminalize or make it an environment where people just come to it because they have to, and there's no threat of arrest, and there's no threat of these kind of sanctions that kick you out of programs and exclude you and create access problems. So there's big changes have to be made, and those changes are not necessarily within the homeless arena. It's kind of from without, kind of up the river, so to speak. And definitely in a socioeconomic way, it's building enough affordable housing that we need, and we have nowhere near. So in Europe, they have more housing. In other countries, they don't have those sanctions. Portugal, the Netherlands, that countries that have already really given it great thought about public health and about harm reduction and how you help people, and you don't criminalize them for being unhoused or for having addictions, or in the US for being Black and brown, for it's kind of cool. I think we need to have social justice intersect with harm reduction. It's this really cool intersect, social justice, public health, just boom. And then there's a great resolution that we do it for the right reasons, and we do it with conviction, and we actually decriminalize and some of these things that force on us to devote our money and our resources to help people in a public health way, get their
But
health.
it's hard, right? Because the US is punitive. I mean, I think so from a microcosmos, if you're looking at it, just if we talk about LA, right? Like about the simple question would be like, first, like, can LA end homelessness? And then my two part to that is it, or is that a dumb question? Like, is it, like, is there a solution? Is there a solvable thing? Are there people that are working on it? Like, what does that timeline look like? So do you think, can you end homelessness in Los Angeles?
Well, it's interesting that came up in a question yesterday. I was on another call. We're doing a homeless count in LA. So in a practical way, I could tell you in a couple days or month or so when the results come out, everybody's thinking it's increased. And meanwhile, we've devoted billion extra dollars into this issue in LA to solve or put a dent in ending it. And I'd like to think that all this money is going to do it, but my hunch is it's not, because the front door is as big as the back door, so the exit is similar to the entrance, and if not greater at the entrance. So we're doing something wrong. If our goal
No.
is to end it, if it's to end it, and to me, it's less about ending it, more about going upstream and figuring out in a bit different way, kind of, well, what are the other things that we could help prevent? It's almost easier to prevent people from falling into something than it is to devote all these resources with people multiple problems of mental health and addiction and health issues, really severe health issues that complicate somebody's life and make it even more difficult to place them in housing. And a lot easier, we prevent health problems, prevent some of the fallout from addictions, and try to resolve it that way, so the flow in is decreased and the flow out is increased. And when that shift happens, then I would answer, that's the long answer to say maybe someday we'll have a solution. I don't think we have it right now.
But doesn't it seem dumb that we can't? Like, given the resources that are in California, that there's so much money that he can't. And then, so in my perspective, and I'm not an expert like you, so I'd be like, we can't agree on things. So like on a conservative side, there have been historical movements, like when Reardon came into LA and moved all the homeless out of Skid Row, right? Like liberal people, like, that's terrible, right? Like you can't like make homelessness illegal. But on the flip side, I feel like I kind of want, I pose it like, why shouldn't it be illegal to be homeless? Why shouldn't it be illegal to not take care of people that like can't take care of themselves? Shouldn't the system take care of them? I think that obviously they shouldn't be put in jail, right? But I'm actually asking a rhetorical question because I know the answer is just like, there just aren't those resources. But I think at the top, right, people aren't making those choices, and they don't. And I think that politicians don't know how to, because people wouldn't like it, right? It's like, oh, we can't, in America, this is to your question, we're too punitive. We're like, oh, no, we can't give someone all of that stuff. Why would we do that? Like, they're lazy. Those are lazy people. They're lazy drug addicts. That's why they're homeless. But so my thought is like, right, if you think about the different people in the systems, right, like there's that bottom group, which is, I'm imagining who you work with mostly, which is severely mentally ill, substance using, chronically homeless people, right? That should be solvable. But and so do you feel like there are initiatives in place now, or is there enough in the zeitgeist and local government that people get that to solve that piece of the homeless issue?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. I think there are really wonderful things that address not necessarily addiction, but definitely address homelessness and the support that somebody needs to get off the street, and a solution that has been working. It's just there obviously is nowhere near the amount of resources being put into that to put a dent in it. But sometimes I think it's less about the money and more about what you're saying, the people that are making those decisions. That therein lies the problem, because a legislator, a politician are trying to satisfy many things beyond homelessness. So they're concerned about the folks that aren't homeless in their community and listening to them. And this NIMBY, not in my backyard kind of thing, really exists. And for the most part in LA, there's not an overwhelming percentage of neighborhoods that even want to deal with this problem. They just don't want it. Out of sight, out of seen. And that makes it even more challenging. So yeah, you definitely, what you're saying is true. A good rhetorical question that I don't have the rhetorical answer for, but
I was just talking to myself.
Yes,
I mean, I have all my bad ideas. I mean, I feel like I'm conservative and liberal, and both would be like, we should outlaw homelessness. Like, we should make it illegal. Then let the government figure out what to do with all those people. I mean, obviously,
go to the extreme that you talked about. We should just put them away. Not only arrest them, kill them, and that you can erase the problem. I mean,
well, homeless concentration camps. There's lots of space.
And there you
Omaha,
go. And in some ways, I really think there are people that would absolutely want to do that. Maybe not to that extreme, but definitely in a containment way, to move the problem off into a rural kind of industrial.
So I think in the city, it's a mostly like it's a visual thing. People don't want to see that as they're walking down the street, because it maybe reminds them of this other population that they have no grasp of that situation and how desperate they must be to be in that situation. And as far as population groups with the mentally ill and substance abuse, I've noticed, my dad is a veteran. That's why I grew up in Europe. Do you have a lot of veterans as part of your population? Because I have noticed that when you leave the military, like, they will sign you up and they will put a roof over your head and give you a gun and send you overseas. But I don't feel like there's a lot of transitioning from being in the military, where they gave you all of your physical needs, to when they leave the military and then now they are on their own, where they've never paid rent before.
Yeah, check it out. The vet population, I believe, is the one we are addressing.
Okay.
That because of exactly the way in which you described it, I think the powers that be at the VA, the powers that be within communities, have really done a 360 in the sense of wanting to help veterans. And the vets, the lobbying arm of people that want that support, have actually set like a goal of ending it for vets. And they're using VA properties and all the resources they have. Now, I don't know how much they've accomplished in terms of it, but there really is that concerted effort. And to me, it's kind of like, in answering Daniel's question, there are solutions. It's very interesting, and for a specific target. The other target is women and children. There's a big effort. So, and those tend to be the ones that the community kind of embraces. This one served our country, so we should help them. This is a mom and her kid, we should help them. And meanwhile, the 80% of the problem is single men, and men of color primarily. And the resources definitely needed to address that particular segment. There isn't the same kind, gentle, wonderful thought of ending it. But to answer your question directly, yes, I think we're headed that way, and it appears there's many groups working together to do that.
So you're talking about Band-Aids earlier. What are the Band-Aids that our society is putting on the homeless situation?
Healthcare, mental health care, food vouchers, immediate shelter. I think, we see a problem. We're putting our finger in the dike, so to speak, so it just doesn't leak or break down. And it's not really addressing the deeper problem of ending it for some people, because those resources really are more costly.
Well, there's a lot of mine are like just like Bombas socks,
Hey, there you go.
No, I mean, not that homeless people don't need socks, but
clothing, a hygiene center. We operate a hygiene center. 30,000 people a month go to it. Restrooms, showers, laundromat facilities, but that's just keeping people hygienically safe and free from some of the problems you get for not keeping up your hygiene, or having a safe place to go use a restroom, or but Band-Aids, just You
I
know, what we
see.
need is those people in their own home with the bathroom and food to eat and you know,
Wait, people should have their own bathrooms?
yeah, I think so.
Weird.
You kind of answered my question a little bit. So at Homeless Healthcare in Los Angeles, what services do you provide other than the bathrooms you were saying? What other services do you provide for the
So
homeless community?
we have an array of programming from outreach. We have outreach teams that go out on the street and encampments, parks, alleys, streets, and we also have outreach that goes on around substance use, where people and mental health, where we're, in addition to reaching people who are on the street, they're able to assess and provide a level of field-based care. We do the hygiene center, as I said. We have a syringe exchange program that distributes about 2 to 3 million syringes a year
Oh,
out
wow.
of a site that offers a really cool life-saving drug, naloxone, reverses an overdose. So we're also uh, helping people stay alive. Because one thing
Okay.
I know for certain is if you're dead, you can't get housing.
Very true.
So
You have to be alive to have a
yeah, you
house,
have to be
right?
alive. And so the effort we need to do is to keep people alive that are overdosing on an
Mm-hmm.
opiate. And so that's one of the absolutely huge uh, programming we do is around that drug, naloxone. All of my programs handed out. And then we land people into treatment, into mental health and substance use treatment, progressive treatment. And lastly, we also provide housing programs where people can come in and continue their journey, so to speak, to that leads to permanent housing. And yeah, it's a complete formula. We love it. We do trainings as well. We train people in the community how to be great social worker, case manager types. And lastly, advocacy. You can't just hand out these band-aids. You have
Mm-hmm.
to figure out systemically how to change the system so it works better for everybody. It's that public health kind of the
Yeah.
greater good. All of us are encountering folks on the street, so it would be good to know that good public health is going on to protect our kids, to protect us, and to protect the people that are on the street. So everybody benefits from this good public health.
Yeah.
And so is there like, so to end, is there one project that you're working on at Homeless Healthcare Los Angeles that you're excited about, like a new venture that you're going
Yes.
into?
Well, we started one and it leads to another, but we pay drug users, which I love. We pay them to work for us. And
Oh,
they're active drug users and they do outreach. So this was a program by design that was created by drug users. It was implemented by drug users. Drug users work with other drug users who better in the community to know what's needed than somebody that's from the community. And then they have saved lives and brought support to their community. I love that program. We need to have more programming like that. It's unique. I can't think of anyone else in the US to the volume of what we're doing. It's got a couple hundred people that are enrolled in it, and 40 or 50 people on a regular basis do it. But what it's leading to is the exciting program I want to do, which is a safe consumption site or overdose prevention site, which is actually a place for people to come and do heroin injecting or smoke meth or inject meth. I know it sounds kind of wacky, but the thought is that in a public health way, people should be careful with what they put in their body and how they put it in
mm-hmm.
and not die from it. So those facilities will help keep people alive. And that's where we're headed. There is legislation in California that's being brought up to ultimately to the governor that hopefully will sign it next year, and it's not too far off. They do it in other countries. We have a partner in Copenhagen that actually allows people to come in with cocaine, powder
Wow.
cocaine, make it into crack and smoke it. Isn't that a novel idea? And heroin, and they're able to, in a safely way, use. And there's a shelter on site too, a 100-bed shelter that people can stay in. And it's kind of like this containment logic of, if we're going to decriminalize it, which is what they've done, they decriminalize the simple recreational use of drugs, then we need to provide a space for people to do it that's safe, and a space for people, if they want to end it or get out of it, it's there, and everybody wins. The community wins, and people are alive, and they transition into the community. And I'd love to have more of that in Los Angeles. We're not politically, or even in our community, it's not like this is an idea that everybody is saying, "Oh, let's do it." But I do believe we've changed, and we're headed that way.
So we need to share this then with the conservative people that want to shut you down, so we can make them angry and motivate them to
fight even harder.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming they think you're just promoting drug use. I'm assuming that's what their thoughts are.
Absolutely. And what the fact is, if you go to Portugal, who has decriminalized drugs and also offered a lot of programming for people who use drugs, and other countries that have looked at drug use differently, there's a reduction in drug use, a significant reduction, a reduction in the disease burden, where HIV and hepatitis and other bloodborne diseases are prevented at greater numbers than what the US does. And just simple things, people's quality of life and homelessness, all those numbers are decreased by changing just a view of addiction and substance use. That there
I just feel like kind of on a human level, if you tell someone you can't do something because you're going to get in trouble, you're going to excessively do it because it's kind of, you tell a kid that, you say, don't touch that. What are they going to do? Or the marshmallow trick. Yeah. They're going to shove both marshmallows in their mouth because someone's looking.
Yeah. Drugs feel really good. So I just don't get why people want to feel good and do them.
Hey, exactly. Let me tell you,
that's so weird.
Let me tell you my last little ditty.
Sure.
Years ago, I went to the LAPD. We did outreach programs in the jails. LA has a couple, a city jail, a county jail. They're busy all the time. And we were doing a program of harm reduction, which really reduces risk primarily, but it also connects people. Those are the two tenets of harm reduction. It really connects people to resources up and down. And they wanted us to meet with people who were just exiting out of jail. And we were going to do our harm reduction thing, lead them to a resource, but the LAPD was interested in, they wanted to make sure that the program reduced recidivism, that people weren't going to commit crimes and come back to jail. And, that wasn't necessarily our program, but I said, well, I do have a program that we're not operating right now, but we can, if you're interested in hearing about it, that would end recidivism. And he goes, I love it. The guy's name was Gentle Winter. I love that a cop is named Gentle Winter. I'm just outing him publicly. But yeah, I mean, is that thing called like an oxymoron, or whatever,
Yeah.
But, so I told him, I said, well, here's the program. Just don't arrest them. And then we have a program that meets your goal 100%, and it's so interesting, the very thing that you want as an outcome is the very thing that they control themselves. Just save the money. And these are low-level crimes. These people aren't doing violent acts or harming other people. They're just recreationally using a substance. I mean, alcohol's legal. Come on, we had prohibition, and we know that didn't work. I mean, and my son, you could articulate this 100 times better than me.
Where is this going?
He reads books, and I don't. So you have the longer history of the drug war, the war on drugs.
Yeah. On another time, this makes me think I've been thinking for this podcast to have it be kind of a tag your it. We should do another episode on drug legalization. So like tag your it. Let's bring the person to talk with us.
Let's get Peter from Copenhagen, my buddy Peter Moeller, who runs that site. He's one of the people behind that movement in Denmark and Copenhagen. Yeah, it'd be cool to have somebody like him talk openly about what they do in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
And, as a juxtapose, that would be
cool. That'd be great. That's why we're doing this, just to kind of have a fresh perspective on handling all of these issues that we deal with here. But thank you so much. It was so good meeting you.
Yes.
I think this
Yes.
is adorable that you two are just such good dudes.
Yeah.
Good dudes doing good things.
Yeah.
And so in closing with this, what I'd say is we're going to go back to the beginning. One of the things, but since you were on the spot, you didn't get it. One of the things that I want to get people to do is not development, not philanthropy from that perspective.
No.
So here's my thought. In your field, period, what do you think is the one thing you feel the most certain about or know or understand the most? And that if you were talking to someone about that, and I am putting you on the spot, it's a hard thing. Like people have joked with me, like, oh, I only know about foods my 6-year-old likes, or like, like I know this, but I do think that you're an expert in your field, and you've said a lot of things. But is there ever the moments when you're like really with clarity thinking about what you understand about homelessness in LA, substance abuse, this thing? What is it? What could you tell someone where you don't feel like an ass being like, I'm really certain that this is the right thing to do, or this is something I know?
What I'm best at is articulating and knowing compassion and non-judgment in working with people, because that really is the answer. That I tell my staff what I'm really good at: just be friggin' nice to people. I'm expert at that. Expert at how it translates for clinicians in who are doing therapy, or doctors who are working in the field, or anybody, whether you're a peer on the street out of a personal experience to a person that's been through years of college. I'm expert at translating that into their work, and that's something I've worked at since day one, and that's the vibe we have at my work. It's kindness and compassion, and
I love that.
yeah, we're
I
just
love
kind
that.
people. And yeah,
Good answer.
there you go.
That was fantastic. I always said that, like, the way to solve everything is the kindness and respect. I just feel like having respect for the people, respect for this planet we live on. There's so much lack of respect that I feel like has made a lot of division or butting of heads, or
and said another way is, to me, you create programs that you would be willing to be in. So it's an easy one. So you look at a program, you go, would I go in? And some of them I thought, no, I ain't going to go into this crap. But you design things that you yourself would be willing and love to walk in, and that's a challenge in terms of making sure you have the resources. That's why development fundraising is such an important thing in the position I have, that you got to have the money in the bucks to hire the good people and to get the resources you need for those people to be able to do their job. And you got to be kind to them too, unfortunately.
I love that little snippet. I love that little snippet too. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. It was so good to meet you. I hope next time we could do your interview in person.
Yes, let's try to do that. Next time I'm up, we could do that too. Maybe we can plan it. I don't know.
Hey.
Peter. Yeah, let's try to get Peter.
You did good. We won't make fun of you too much after.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a little bit.
I'm going to get up and go, yeah, there's my old dad. Yeah.
I love you, man. Thank you.
I love
you
you
guys
too.
Are so sweet. I love this so much.
He's my favorite. Don't tell his brothers and sisters. They're both thinking, who do I save? Okay. Don't tell James. I would save James.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a baby.
He's a baby. He's a baby.
Yeah, he's a young baby. He needs to be saved.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving us some of your time. I know.
Okay.
You and your dad are so cute. Can I start with that?
Yes.
Okay. I just think you guys are just really great guys.
Yeah, no, it's like really nice to hear him talk. I'm like, oh, you did good. I was worried for him. I'm like, what are you gonna say?
But
What are you gonna say, old man? But no, he's good.
You could tell he's so passionate about what he does.
Yeah.
And that if only more minds were in positions of power that could change things, as he said, up the river. I've thought about that so much since he said that, about instead of trying to catch the babies at the end of the river, figure out why they're being sent down the river in the first place.
Yeah.
So how are you going to fix it, Daniel?
I don't know. I mean, well, there's so many pieces to the homeless crisis I know that I mean, you know, because I'm close to my dad, I believe in a lot of his interventions, and I think he's focused on a very hyper specific population, which is like mentally ill, substance abusing people that are chronically homeless, and really that population is really challenging to help get off the streets. But I think they have effective models for doing it. I think the broader scale piece is like we're talking about is like I think that we need to think more about making laws at the state level that really help put experts in the right places and also fund the right types of projects. And it's just going to be expensive, and we know what will work, I think, but it just takes like not just building housing and getting people housed, but then having huge teams of people that can help support those people. And it's unpopular. Also, those individuals need income from the state, and people don't want to do that.
What's your view on what Gavin Newsom is trying to do for the state of California to address homelessness?
I mean, I think it's fine. I think, again, it's ineffective only because at city levels, there's too much resistance around what intervention to do. So there's not enough, it's not enough money, and then also we were just talking about other politics. It's like there needs to be a focused solution. So like even if it's the wrong solution, we need to like get behind one idea for how to do it, and then see if that works or doesn't work. What happens is I think that we don't agree, and it's all fissured.
What are the partisan sides? What are the partisan sides? What does the left say about homelessness, and what does the right say about homelessness?
Well, I mean, so the left problem I see is that they're like, oh, people have a right to be homeless if they want to, right? And so I think that there's different ideologies that kind of fit in that generalization. And the problem with that is I'm like, no, I don't think people should be allowed to live in unsanitary, unhealthy conditions where they need mental health treatment or substance use.
Right.
Like it should be like not in the way that the right thinks about it, but homelessness should be outlawed. You should not be allowed to live in a tent camp, right? Like we should at least have refugee camps. So like then on the right side though is they're more this like Horatio Alger story kind of thing of like, oh, no, those people are lazy. Like there's the worthy poor that we should be helping, which are people that are like, you know, like mothers and children.
That's what you're saying about the vets and the mothers and children, but whereas like 70+% of the homelessness are single men.
Yeah. And so those people, I mean, I think what the right would be is they're not worthy of it. Like, or they don't need to be homeless, right? They could work. Look at all these jobs that are out there. Like, they just need to stop being lazy.
Yeah. Is it more just like, it's not even about being lazy. Do they understand about the being unwell mentally or having substance abuse issues? And if you haven't been touched by that, you don't understand. Is that what it is? Because I feel like the left is more bleeding heart, trying to like understand why they are living the way they are, and the right is you could just get over it.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think it's kind of like that. I think it's like that. Yeah, and I think that but I think where the left could meet the right is I think that there are these interventions like we should outlaw. I think that the right solution is like, oh, the police should be doing this, right? But homeless people don't need to be in jails. We don't need to criminalize it at that extent, but we need to like criminalize it with compassion so that there's this like system for people to go through. And then that's where it gets complicated in politics is then there needs to be the funding and then there needs to be expertise, right? You need to then have like lots of social workers, a lot of mental health providers, lots of people that are good at housing a really difficult type of population, and then recognize that those people are going to move in and out of services. But it's going to be cheaper overall than like frequent flyers that are, you know, inundating our emergency rooms and stuff like that.
It's a lot to think about.
It's too much. It's depressing.
And there's people on the ground thinking about this all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of it actually getting done.
Yeah. But I mean, my closing thing, and I know my dad would agree with me, is like we're just too wealthy of a state, even if we're just going to talk about California, where there is enough wealth here and enough intelligence to manage and mitigate this problem. And it's not, so that's the part of it that's asinine for it not getting done. But
and you digress.
Okay.
Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, good job,
Super
Brianna.
helpful.
At Global Partners for Development, our mission is to advance community-led initiatives that improve education and public health in East Africa. We envision a world in which every East African community has the capacity to implement dynamic, sustainable solutions to the challenges they face. To learn more, visit gpfd.org.